Hey everybody, Garcia here. Today we're going to be taking a spoiler-free look at a small card game that's going to give you an escape the room-like experience. This is Deckscape, The Mystery of El Dorado. In this game, all the players are going to be working together, solving different puzzles and visual riddles, things like that, in order to achieve victory at the end of the deck of cards in as little time as possible. You are going to be going through different stories, if you will, or one long story anyway. At the beginning of that story, you have all basically just failed to find the lost city of El Dorado. You are on a plane out of the region when that plane crashes and you are drawn into this adventure. You're going to be using this deck of cards here. I'm not going to be showing you any of the content in the game because I don't want to spoil anything. But you're going to be revealing cards from the top, reading them, seeing them, trying to figure out what to do on most of them. They will pose you a question, something you must solve, and then once you are ready to solve that, once you think you've got it, you'll take a look at the back of the card and see if indeed you do. It's possible that you'll take penalties for not having the correct answer. It's possible you'll reveal new things. You might even gain permanent things you can keep on the table that will assist you in later puzzles, all sorts of things. I've reviewed, I want to say, some of the other games in this line. There are quite a few of them by now. But the reason I wanted to make sure I reviewed this one is because it's actually one of my favorites in the series. I really enjoyed this specific one. It wasn't perfect. I still had an issue with some of the puzzles, but overall, I thought this was a good return to what I liked in the game originally when the very first one came out. So obviously I'm skipping a table overview here. I will show you what my ratings would be if I were to break this down using my usual target method, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. I'm just going to tell you some of my observations from this one. So, the main things I liked and didn't like. So I'll start with didn't like, okay? There are some puzzles in here that are just not interesting, but more than that, they feel like they cheat a little bit. You know, it's things that you wouldn't have thought of, right? They're things that they feel like gotcha moments. And I don't really like that. On the reverse of that, many of the puzzles are interesting and they are, while not maybe necessarily fresh, they are fresh to the series. There's a lot of visual puzzles where you just have to stare at something and decipher it. I like that quite a bit. And there are some that are, you know, of the usual turn a thing, flip a thing, look at it this way or that way. So I like that. I enjoy those kinds of puzzles, you know. One thing I really liked about it is that it goes back to something the very original one did, and it does it several times, in fact, which is at a certain point in the deck, in the story, it'll give you several decks of cards. It'll sort of break up a few of the upcoming cards into several decks, and you can choose to push on whichever one you want. That's great. The original game did it. Took the entire deck, in fact, and broke it up into 4 pieces. This one does it a few different times, and I like that. I enjoy that they did that again, and did it so much because it's fun to be able to, you know, have a couple of players work on this puzzle while I grab this, and maybe you want to try to work on that one. I like that. So that gets everybody involved, allows you to try for something and then go, I can't figure that out yet. Let me go do this thing. Maybe that'll come to you later. So that's neat. I enjoy that. The theme, like I said, is another big positive here for me. It does feel like a long trek, like you're traveling, dealing with things, you know, and that feels adventurous. It's interesting. It's engaging. I also thought that some of those things you were meant to have observed and then remembered and recalled back, they used that, but not as much as they did in some of their previous editions or versions of the game. I reviewed a previous one that I thought just fit that whole gotcha thing way too much. It's an Egyptian themed one. And it has a huge memory element. This one does not. There's a little bit of recalling, visual clues you've been given, but it's not nearly as punishing. So that's why I like this one more. So there you go. Those are my general thoughts. It's kind of hard to give you much more than that without spoiling anything. Basically, the one thing to take away from the video is this little deck of cards is going to give you about an hour to 90 minutes of fun. It is fun. I think it's one of the better ones in the series, so it's certainly recommended earlier than not. And if you enjoy this theme, I think you're going to have a good time with this one. You can play this solo. You can play up to 6. I would recommend maybe a 2-player adventure, maybe 3. That's a good way to do this. So there you go, The Mystery of El Dorado from Deckscape, the Deckscape line of games. Check these out. This is going to get 7.5 out of 10 from me. That's, I think, just right. Can't quite decide on a 7. That seems too low. An 8 just seems too high. 7.5. So there it is. Check this one out, everybody. I'm Z Garcia. Thanks for sitting through a little bit of my rambling here, and I'll see you on the next one.